Should have our guest today write a song to that beat. I like that beat. What's up? It's Kevin Kenny. We are live in New York City on the corner of 4th and Broadway for the Build series. And we have a 3-time Grammy nominee on the show today who has written some of your favorite songs and is now performing as an artist, tracks you are sure to fall in love with. Please let's make some noise for Tayla Parx. See, did I not tell you it was a fire fit? I warned him. I warned him, Tayla.
Thank you. You know, I'm just out here jamming. I just came from the airport, got with my team, and they just put me together real fast.
Yeah. Well, I like that we're kind of kicking off this stay, it sounds like, in New York. You're going to be enjoying yourself for a couple weeks now.
So much fun. I usually love creating out here in New York in general. So to spend so much time out here all the way until like Halloween, I'm excited to see what kind of adventures are in store.
Now, you wrote a song. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago in the Palms Hotel in Vegas?
Yes. Which is actually also where I wrote Rebound.
Which is the video we just saw,
Exactly, which is the video we just saw. We do this thing with my publishing company, Warner Chappell, where basically they get some of their focus writers and producers and come in and just have fun. And we just kind of see what music comes out of it. So I just went to Vegas for a day or two, me and Apollo, my dog, and we just wrote.
Now, is this different than the songwriting camp that you're launching?
It is different because for the specific songwriting camp, Burnout is really to refuel the creative. We have chefs coming through. We have sound baths happening. We have a lot of different things that I feel like, we're so used to kind of using a creative, drying them up and throwing them away for the next one, right? Instead of teaching people how to properly have longevity, how to properly have, work smarter, not harder.
Right. Longevity is something that I feel like you had your eye on from an incredibly young age. You grew up in Texas. You moved to LA when you're 12. And you, at an early age, resist the notion to sign a major record label deal because you wanted to sit back, as I've heard, and you wanted to learn the business. Where did that mindset come from? I feel like 12, you want to be famous. You want to be a pop star at 12. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that hesitation and really that patience, where does that come from?
I think it's just from being lucky enough to be able to be a student of my craft. You can see any type of TLC story, Lifetime story or whatever of people who have done things too soon or too late, and just trusting my timing, whatever that was, and really making sure that fame or money wasn't the thing that drove me to success. Because as a songwriter, I work every single day for free, and maybe that song will, be big, and maybe it will never be heard. And as an artist, you do that same exact thing. You play to the empty rooms until, you're selling out arenas. So it's one of those things that if you really want to do this and have longevity, you have to desire it more than just being there for success in regards to money and fame.
Right. Well, I mean, just to be that observant, though, is remarkable at a young age. Like, to even cite the TLCs and the Eat Your Hollywood Stories a day. Were you at a young age just an observer before you were anything else?
Yes, I went through a phase when I was maybe like 11 or 12, and I found out what a prodigy was, and I started to get on YouTube and be like, whoa, there's so many kids, and they're so cool and so talented, and what is the youngest kid to ever have a Grammy, and what is the youngest kid to ever, these types of things, people pushing themselves to be the greatest has always inspired me, and I've always been just curious. So any type of documentary, me and Haim talk about that all the time, we're obsessed with any type of documentary, especially when it has something to do with music or anything like that. But I'm just a very curious person, so naturally that came with being curious about my business and the music business.
Do you think you could be a great songwriter and not be naturally inquisitive?
No, you can be a good songwriter and not be curious, but you can't be a great songwriter because you have to be curious enough to know what is other people's experience and perspective when it comes to life, because it's different than your own. Even though we all fall in love, we all get our heart broken, we all experience the same emotions, but we experience them differently. One person might get their heart broken and go home and cry for a week. The next one goes out and parties for a week, And for me as a songwriter, listening to those stories is what allows me to come up with something so relatable that millions of people want to sing along.
Right. I think you take it a step further, though, because you just don't want to understand somebody. You want to put yourself in their shoes.
Completely.
Which it must make you, all the songs that you do write and the career that you have right now, it must make you a really understanding friend and partner. And do you find that? Do you find yourself to be I can't imagine you getting worked up. I'm sure you do. But I feel like you'd be just so understanding of the other person's disposition.
Oh yeah, when it comes to writing, it's a bit like therapy. I'm an empath, and I am the type of person that really goes by the emotions in the room. You know, the emotions that I feel even that aren't being said. You know, if somebody has a particular aura, that's something that I feel and I pick up on. Or if there's an artist that I'm working with, if it's not for myself, it's like, okay, what were you going through today? Because I can feel it, you know, and eventually they break down and they tell me that. Or if it's myself, it's taking a look in the mirror and saying, what's going on? Like, check in with yourself. And that's usually my albums, you know?
Right. How do you write for so many different people, and you're an artist yourself now. It's almost like a chameleon-esque career. How do you find Tayla within all of that? Because I feel like when you're writing for yourself, when you're writing for you have to put yourself in so many different positions. How do you find yourself, that anchor?
Well, I think that's also why I was patient enough to really, really grow up. You know, I've been working since I was 9 years old, and so it's very hard to kind of take yourself out of what you do, but who are you? Right? I know what I am. I know that I'm an entertainer. I found myself asking myself this at 21 years old. I know what I am. I know that I'm a singer. I know that I am a writer. I know that, but who are you? You've been working since you were 9. Right. So this whole journey of really, really being able to relate to people in a completely different way. I was homeschooled, so that was something that I missed out on. Really getting to know other artists. What is your experience? And would I say it that way? It just gave me perspective to really find myself, and also being able to find myself as an artist and go back and songwrite for other people also gives me some type of release, because I write around 200 songs a year, and I can't release 200 songs a year, but sometimes I want to write a song like Panic at the Disco High Hopes, and it wouldn't make sense for me as an artist, so I have to make the decision and say, what's best for the song, you know, without stunting my creativity, just to say, oh, I'm not going to write for anybody else now. I think that it would be boring, you know, it would be boring and not allow me to grow as a creative.
Right. And you talk about that fine line between, is this song for me or is this song for somebody else? Charlie XCX, you know, someone who just dropped an album, and she also does both, right, songwriting and performing. And she was really open and transparent recently on social media about the anxiety that she has at times about whether or not she wants to keep it for herself or potentially give a song to maybe a bigger artist at that given time so more people can hear the song that she wrote. Is that ever a battle that you go through personally?
Of course, but I think it also just goes back to, is this song genuinely me?
Right.
Or did I want this song because now a bigger artist is interested in it and now I'm second guessing my own decisions? Right? So you kind of always have to go back to, well, why do you, if nobody wanted the song, if you know the biggest stars in the world that you're writing for didn't want the song, would you still want to release it? You know, because as a songwriter, sometimes because we have the access to know, well, these executives and these A&Rs who've done plenty of hit songs before think this song is a hit song. Maybe I should keep it for myself. And I don't think that that's the right mentality to have. I think that, you know, there's songs that are big for a reason, and you have to do what's best for the music. And sometimes, you know, you have a situation like Let Me Love You with Neo, who it's like, okay, you could have given it away, or you could have, you know, kept giving your songs to Mario or whatever, but you kept the right one for yourself, and you have to just going back to trusting your timing and trusting the vision that you have for yourself.
Right. I remember Julia Michaels telling me a story with Issues, you know, her first foray from songwriter to artist, and how she was going to give that to a big-time pop star at the time, but it just felt too personal. It actually felt just too close to home. What was the first song that you had like that, where maybe you at first considered giving it away, but you know, this is totally me, I have to?
For me, it would be I Want You. It was a song that, in that phase in my life, which is now, I guess, like 3 years old, it was at the time when I was doing a lot of records for, and with Janelle Monáe. And because she's such an artist that was like, well, we're figuring it out, you know, and she had such a strong identity, I was able to kind of just have fun. And I ended up accidentally landing on things that were very much so me, you know, during that process. And it was really cool because she was able to hear like one of the songs that I almost, you know, did for her. And she was like, I'm so happy that you released that and that you found a home for it, because it made perfect sense. And so those are those moments where you're like, okay, if something feels naturally you, and again, checking in with yourself and having that type of, you know, just realness with yourself. If something feels right, there's nothing wrong about it.
Totally. And not forcing anything, which you do such a great job of.
Exactly. I'm just chilling through life, literally waking up, doing what I want to do every single day. And, every now and then life happens and it gets a little stressful. But at the end of the day, I'm not doing brain surgery here.
Right.
I'm making people feel good. My job is to bring people through their best and their worst days,
It's a hell of a job. It's a great gig.
You gotta stay in. You gotta just meet strangers. It's every stranger and every friend that I meet that are just kind of adding to that story that I just kind of put back into the world.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear the song about Build.
Yes.
I want to get back to High Hopes because that, of course, it's so crazy to think that you're talking about Panic at the Disco, a band that really has a 13-year career now. That's their biggest song by a long shot. A #1 record at radio, at alt radio, at pop radio. It crossed over there. It's a song that you wrote and you held on to for a while because you wanted to find the right artist. Were there anybody along the way? And maybe you didn't get to the 9th inning, right? But were there anybody you thought about before you handed it over to Panic?
Honestly, I didn't know who I heard for this song, but I just knew that there were certain people that were reaching out about it, and I just knew it wasn't the right fit.
Okay.
Right? And that's something that's probably one of the most kind of nerve-wracking decision that I have to make because I'm friends with a lot of these people.
Right.
So I can't just go to one pop star and say, hey, I'm going to give this song to like both of our friends and we're going to all see each other next week at the iHeartRadio.
Right.
That's probably the most anxious that I get because I don't want anybody to ever take it personal. But again, you have to want what's best for the song. Right. And so with that song, I sat on it for 2 years. Me and my co-writers and my co-producers, we just wanted to make sure that it found the right home. And it was, I couldn't have asked for a better home because not only was it something that was a massive record, but it was something meaningful for that particular artist. Right. Very similar with like Thank You Next. It was Ariana Grande's first #1. She's been at it for a long time and I didn't even realize that. But she was like, Tayla, you realize this is my first #1. And me and her and Tommy and Victoria and everybody looked around like, wow. So even more so than just being able to pull out this amazing song, this means something for this artist. Right. Bigger than a #1, bigger than millions sold. It's like, wow, it's a first time. When was the last time you did something for the first time?
Well, and also you go back to our conversation just about energy and not forcing things, and it's something you can never predict. But that song, to me, took Ariana, who was one of the biggest pop stars, to just a megastar status and really just launched the past 18 months of her career. I think that's special, just to be a part of that moment.
You're right.
And a moment that took place in New York City, right?
Exactly. So that was another, kind of moment in my love affair with New York. It literally being like, wait, I keep doing all of these interesting things here, and it's, maybe based off a location, or maybe it's the energy, or maybe it's the strangers that I bump into on the subway, or maybe it's whatever it is, I keep coming back for more.
Yeah.
And so I associate New York with the Thank You Next album because it was literally just here for a week, banging that out. And then I also did We Need to Talk, the entire album here as well. I just
Oh, really?
Yeah, except some of the writing. But then I came and re-recorded everything.
So that's
here.
your debut album, right? It's something you think about your entire life as an artist, an inspiring artist. Why New York for where you put pen to paper?
It's very interesting. I couldn't tell you why. And I think that music is one of those things that's like, okay, not completely meant to understand everything, but for some reason, when I find that inspiration, I chase it all the way. I'll chase it off the edge. I'll be like, oh, I feel something here. What is it? Is it a conversation? Is it, what is it? And something about the energy here. And now it's to the point where I've just been, flying out all my friends, come. There's something special here. So for the next month, I'll be having some of my favorite songwriters from the Alley Tamposies to the Hazes and the Scums and, all of these people who work at some of the biggest artists of our time, you know, and we're going to just say, hey, let's make New York the new stomping ground. Let's bring New York back.
Totally. I love hearing that because, and I've talked about it on the show before, and I don't mean this in a totally negative way, but I do think that especially pop music right now, given just the playlisting world, has become a bit homogenous, right? And I think it's because everybody's in LA, everyone's working with the same people.
Doing the same
We had
thing.
Ross Golan on the show recently,
Yes.
and he was even saying, he's like, sometimes you just don't have time with these big pop stars, so you'll leave the drums on a session because you don't have time to make new drums.
Yep.
And so that's why you hear the same things on the radio. So I think that's so refreshing and encouraging and exciting that somebody as talented as you, both, behind the scenes and now in front of the scenes, is going to move it over to New York temporarily and kind of get some juices going, which is cool.
Completely. Like between like the writers that are publishing and like they're Swedish, and then I work with so many different amazingly like talented people, which is also why for Burnout in particular for that camp, it was about saying one person that's unpublished, unsigned, come basically join some of the top people in the industry and get your life changed in 2 days, And so what would have taken a manager or a publisher or whatever years to get you into that room, and what would have taken you years to be able to build up the amount of placements for this person's manager to see it as valuable, we're going to say, if you have an actual, if you have the desire to be the greatest at whatever it is that you do, I have the opportunities. Just show me that. And that's where I am in life in general right now. It's just being like, okay, once you have the #1 records, and once you have the Grammy nominations, and when you have all of that stuff, you start to find other things that matter to you. And right now it's giving my peers something else to be inspired by, giving strangers something else to be inspired by, and giving them opportunity.
How liberating is it to have those things behind you, right? Those traditional mainstream accolades, the Grammys, the Billboards, right? Like now it's just kind of like, it's like a new game for you.
Yes. What matters? What matters to you? Again, finding out, like once you do all of this kind of superficial things, once you've basically kind of said, okay, well, this is the stuff that matters to the world or to my peers or to those things, then you really get to dig in deep and find out the things that truly make you happy. Because I think in any kind of career, even if you have a 9 to 5, right? You become the president of the company and it's no peak.
Right.
That's the highest point. So then you have to find other joy in it. You have to find other reasons why you continue to do it.
So you were somebody that we touched on earlier in the conversation about, you're young and you want to learn about publishing and you want to learn all the different aspects of not just music, but the entertainment industry. What's got you curious right now? Like what's really, even if it's not something that's like ready to be released, but maybe it's not even in music, but what's really like piquing your interest right now?
Right now, what's been piquing my interest is definitely learning more about like the history of like publishing and labels and how they were built and how we can adjust it to the new age artists.
And you have your own label we should talk about, Tayla Made, of course.
Exactly, I do, and we've signed our first artist, and I'm excited. We'll get back onto that another time.
Yeah.
But, he's incredibly talented, a Brazilian kid, and he's never left Brazil before, and his voice is like a warm hug.
Nice.
And so I've just been getting inspired. I'm also like very like into architecture. I'm very into just different things. That I'm a curious person. So I'm always learning, always taking in a lot of information. Went on vacation, my very first vacation a few weeks ago. I turned 26 a few days ago. So I went
Happy belated.
Thank you. So I went to Hawaii. I went to the edge of an island, the complete furthest I could find myself, and like was reading. And like I used to think like, okay, my 26th birthday, we're gonna be turning up, we're gonna be getting drunk, we're gonna do all that, and then I'm like, all I kind of want to do is sit here and read and like have some friends come through maybe at some point, and my mom, chilling.
So mature at 26 now.
No, I wouldn't say all of that. But I'm trying to get it together.
Have you ever worked with Ferg? You remind me so much of Ferg. We had him on the show recently, and he was like talking about like rugs backstage and like the things that he's like interested in. You talk about architecture, and he's like a creative like you. Just being in New York, that'd be a cool collab. I'm just throwing it out there.
I would love that. I've been very interested in just kind of being like, okay, who should I collab with next? Like Alan Walker and Afro Jack and everybody, like they made complete sense. Even going back to like my mixtape days, putting Khalid on it and Sid from the internet. Like I've always been very selective with the people that I work with, and most of the times those people do have creative interests, so that when we get into a studio, we can have a conversation about whatever, whether it be architecture, whether it be design and furniture, whether it be, I like those kind of artists. So if you're saying that's what it is, then apparently we need to meet.
Yeah, I vote for that. You talk about Alan Walker. He's just one of a few of the remixes that we can get on the remix pack of Me Versus Us, which is this is such a cool artwork. But
thank you. My creative kind of hub did the artwork. Park Studios, who's also
nice.
put in Burnout. My boy Coop, he's awesome. He kind of he just kind of kills it every
Yeah.
single time, as you can see.
How did this all come about, though? Because this is really neat. We kind of get to know the song in a totally new light, kind of several different
Oh
lights.
yeah. So Me Versus Us was very interesting. It was one of the very first records that I wrote for We Need to Talk. And it was at a time in my life where I was like really in it, and really making sure that I wasn't freaking crazy, and falling in love for the first time and needing that reassurance. And, I love a good dance song too. So I was like, oh, I need to see how many ways that we could kind of interpolate this and what other people's kind of interpolation would be of it. And so I was in Norway and I ran into Alan Walker and I was like, actually, I have this song and I've been very, very particular about who remixes it, I guess the word would be able to say. And then Afrojack, he was one of the very first people that kind of, when I first met him and started working, he's like, you're an artist. And I was like, give me a few years. But he's like, you're an artist. And that's my Virgo brother. So, of course, I was really excited to have them be a part of kind of giving the song a new life.
Yeah, it's out now. We can all enjoy it, which is cool.
Yeah.
What I wanted to touch on really quick before we go to the fan questions is not only have you had all the accolades, commercially, but you've also worked with just like what I have to imagine are so many of your heroes from, J-Lo to Christina. Like you've had sleepovers with Christina Aguilera.
Yes.
What the hell happens at a sleepover with Christina?
So, I introduced her to Black Mirror, because she hadn't seen that show. And I was like, girl, we got to get you together real quick. So I introduced her to Black Mirror. She has her dogs. And we just talk about, like, literally the same thing. And she's like, come on over, girl. And I'm like, I'm dipping out right now. And we literally just watch Netflix, drink wine. And then, I play with her kids, in the backyard. We have like a real friendship. And I can't say that about a lot of the artists that I work with. I definitely have been able to work with so many incredible people that I looked up to around that in my early 20s. Yeah. I don't know if now that I'm 26, I'm like, is that the late 20s? Is that the mid 20s? Yeah. I don't know which one it is. But earlier on, like 21, 22, I was like, I need to, and even 19, I was like, I gotta write with all of my favorite divas. Like I had to hit up Mariah. I had to do TLC, the remaining members. I had to do Christina, of course. I had to do Mary J. Blige. Like I just felt like there was a lot that I could learn from these women. And that was exactly what I was able to do, Christina and Mariah, like they all gave me incredible advice that sometimes when I'm with younger artists, I'm like, wow, you know what I learned from this other person that it
and then
actually
you pass it on.
Exactly.
What's the best advice Christina's ever given you?
Oh my gosh. The one thing that Christina pointed out to me, right? So she used to say, she was like, I used to be, not the most outgoing person or not the nicest, but I had to learn a lesson when somebody treated me that exact same way. And from that moment, she was like, it kind of changed her perspective and wanting to be that person that groomed newer artists and newer songwriters, Sia for instance, and really be a girl's girl, because she started to notice, anybody else that says the divas of our kind of generation or whatever aren't like sweet in particular, right? I just think they don't know them. And also I think that maybe those divas had to have that opportunity to really get back to real, And so that's one thing that I learned from her, because she was so willing to admit, hey, I've had some moments, where I come off as not the sweetest, but I learned from those things, and that's something that you don't want to have to learn the hard way from. Yeah. Or you don't want to have to go through this, or you don't want to, it's so many things that I've been able to learn from just being around them, and it's been an exciting journey, just kind of, again, being a student.
Yeah, and I love that you're paying it forward now, which is so cool to the next generation. We're going to get to some fan questions. The first is going to come from over here.
Hello. Boom, boom. Hey, girl.
Hey. I was wondering if you could talk about your burning out songwriting camp. Are you excited for it? I know it's coming up in a couple of weeks.
Ooh, I'm so excited for Burnout, because it's something that has been on my heart, like in regards to just taking care of the creative. If we have happy songwriters who are creating happy music, which are creating happy stars, which are creating happy labels and publishers, we all win, you know? And so the fact that we've gained so much support behind burnout and something that really, really matters to me, I'm so blessed, because that means that there's not just me that cares. That means that, okay, we can make some progress here.
Thank you.
Great question. We have time for one more. It'll come from right over here.
Hey,
Hi.
girl.
Do you ever experience writer's block? And if you do, what do you do to get out of it?
Well, I think that my answer to that was burnout, was literally like, if you wait till the moment where you're in writer's block to realize I've been doing too much, it's really hard to get out. But if you live every single day looking for a new adventure, right? Every single day waiting to meet this stranger, every single day, like, live your life like you work for yourself, because most of the times you do. As a creative, we just forget. So when you work for when you are kind of on that hustle of you make your own rules, it's really hard to know which direction to go and when you're doing too much. But you got to work smarter, not harder. And there's too much inspiration in the world, whether you travel, whatever that inspiration is for you, find it and make it a part of your lifestyle, not just something that you do to escape from work. You just make it your lifestyle, because that's what makes it just easier to keep the inspiration going, so that you don't hit a wall and realize, oh my God, I'm stuck.
Immersive.
Yes, make
so
it
few
your
words.
lifestyle. Like, literally look for if you hear a horn honk, if you hear a whatever, there's music everywhere.
Right. Did I hear you were doing sessions with Lizzo?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, we finished up tour, and it was so awesome, because right after tour, we did some sessions during the tour as well, but right after, we were just going, and I think she's such a talented writer and rapper and singer and flute player, literally everything.
You're like, Tayla is like the good luck charm of the music industry, because you get around Tayla, and like Lizzo yesterday becomes the longest reigning female rapper to ever have a number one. It's wild.
I would like for that to be the case. That's what I'm trying to keep it going, keep the vibes right, you know, and everybody's winning, and I'm celebrating with my friends, and it's awesome. I couldn't ask for a better person to be like. That means a lot to me. Thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. All right, Tayla, this was awesome. Thanks so much for
Thank
coming
you.
by. Again,
Thank
Me
you.
versus Us, the remix pack is out now. And if you're in New York, you probably see Taylor walking around for the next 2 months.
Yes,
It's been
you
the
will.
Build series. Thanks for watching, guys.